Hello everybody. Oh, it's good to be back, but I know it's been a while. I've played 5,000 hands since the last video, and there is a reason for that. Firstly, I would like to apologise for not making a video every 1,000 hands for this bit, but I mean, as I said, there's a good reason for it. I started to play Zoom instead of playing regular tables, so before then, I started to play. Well, before then, I was playing regular tables, 4 tables of either 6 max or full ring. And then since the 4th of November, today's the 10th, I played. I switched it up. I went to Zoom instead, and I played 4 tables of 6 max Zoom at 2NL. This is primarily because I underwent a little coaching session with Alvin. I'll link his YouTube channel below and his cash game course below as well, because I highly recommend it. And I took some notes and I went away with it a more educated poker player. I wanted to eagerly try and use the tactics, the strategy that Alvin uses at lower stakes. It's fairly different from my usual strategy. And at the start, when I was trying to 4 table Zoom and implement this new strategy, that's probably a bad idea to try and learn something new like straight away, get straight into the mix of things. So I went immediately on a 7 buy-in downswing. However, after the first 1,000 hands, I picked it up and maintained a fairly solid win rate. Overall, even after this downswing, I managed to get a 27 big blind per 100 win rate over 5,000 hands, which is a lot better than what I usually got. Before, I think my last video, I ended up on a 8 or 9 buy-in per 100 over the 15,000 hands, and here just managing to get 27 big blinds per 100 over 5,000 hands is pretty insane. Another big thing is that my red line is now significantly better. I never showed blue line, red line before because I didn't really think it mattered. However, when I'm comparing my results from the past and my results from now, my blue line is still pretty much the same. Like, that should be positive. Money won with showdown. But before, my red line would always tank. It would be down here. Using the new strategy, or the slightly modified strategy, my red line is now actually pretty crushing. It's pretty positive, which is really good, because that means if both blue line and red line are positive, you can summarize that as you're getting value when you want, and you're getting bluffs through when you want, resulting in a really high BB per 100, which is really nice. Okay, let's go through some hands to demonstrate exactly what I did to try and maintain this, to try and get this win rate, to try and absolutely crush my opponents. Let's see what kind of things I actually did. I brought up 5 hands, 1 for every 1,000 that I played. I think that's a reasonable amount. And I want to show you the kind of aggression that I started to unbridle. So here, we've got an open from under the gun, a call and a fold. I've got ace queen offsuit here. Previously we would definitely flat call, but I was just 3-betting out of my mind, so anything that was close between calling and 3-betting, and between folding and 3-betting, I would always choose the 3-bet option. So here, I squeezed to 30 cents, got a call from this guy, and the in-between caller folds. See a flop of Jack 8-7. This part stays the same. We're in a 3-bet pot, and I've got the range advantage in all boards. This board is actually quite unique in that it's probably not that great for me, but I've still got a small advantage, which still allows me to bet a 3rd pot with my entire range, whilst retaining all of my EV. So I bet a 3rd pot, and we get called. On the deuce of clubs, we need to split our range into bluffs and value. This hand theoretically should probably just be a check give up, because it doesn't have a spade. However, this is my unbridled aggression coming out. I wanted to just see how far I could push it. So I bet a size that threatens a reasonable all-in on the river. He calls, and the 4 of spades rolls off. He's got 120 behind into 236, which makes for an easy river bluff. However, because it is the 4 of spades, I've got to realise, I've got to think, what hands am I trying to get him to fold when I bluff? I'm trying to get him to fold hands like Ace Jack, King Jack, and Queen Jack. and Jack 10. Like basically all the top pairs I think will fold. The problem is I've got the Ace of Hearts and the Queen of Diamonds. So Queen Jack suited is now reduced to two combinations of Queen Jack of Clubs and Queen Jack of Hearts. And Ace Jack is severely blocked as well. So I block a lot of the top pair combinations I'm trying to get to fold. I don't have a spade, so I unblock all of these spade combinations that just got there. So this is actually, in my opinion, a fairly bad bluff that I try, because I don't think enough of his range is going to fold. We do get stationed off by the 5-4 of hearts, though. I mean, I would expect that to fold, but you know, that's just a byproduct of me choosing a bad spot to bluff, to be honest. This should be a pure give up, and obviously I noted this guy down as an absolute station, so when I next see him in the pool I know not to do that. But it's still good of me to try these kinds of bluff anyway, so that I know that this kind of spot is not a profitable spot. You have to fail to learn, right? And this is a spot where I just punted off a stack. And that definitely happens every now and then. If I go back to the graph, there are plenty of times where I lose $2, like this little spike here, this little spike here, just losing a buy-in every now and then. Obviously this whole downswing is just losing loads of buy-ins, so yeah, it will happen. Okay, the second hand. We've got Queen 10 of Diamonds. We open it up. We get 3-bet to a fairly small size, which allows us to call with this hand profitably. I did consider the 4-bet bluff, but with this hand I think it makes more sense to flat. So we flat. See a flop of Queen 6-5. He c-bets the third. We have a very standard call. No reason to raise, no reason to fold. I don't even think I'd have any raises on this board, to be honest. So we call. Turn is a queen, and our opponent checks. This is a pretty good sign. It means that we're ahead almost all the time, unless he decides to trap with a queen. And even if he does decide to trap with a queen, us having a queen ourselves makes it really unlikely he has a queen. It's more likely he has like ace-king or aces or kings that wants to pot control on the queen. So I bet a size that I think aces, kings, jacks, tens, those kinds of hands will call. And we call, and our opponent calls. 3 of hearts, we don't really have to worry about the flush. He checks. He's got 139. This is a pretty standard value jam. Unfortunately, we will run into like trapped queens every now and then, but most of the time we're going to try and get called by aces, kings, jacks and tens. So we go for it. Unfortunately, we do get called by king, queen, which is, it is what it is, but I'm still glad that I took that line. That's just a bit of a cooler for me. Alright, this hand. This hand shows the importance of bet sizing post flop to try and get the whole stack in by the river. We open ace queen of hearts. Our opponent, our main villain here, calls. He's got 552 effective, and we cover. So he's got just under 300 big blinds. We flop a flush, and we c-bet 1/4 pot. I think in hindsight I should check this because we don't have as many sets as he does. Because he should have a narrower range proportionally, so he should have more 10s, 8s and 4s. We still have 10s, 8s and 4s for all sets. But he should just have like the stronger proportion because he doesn't have all the other air that should float that we open, like king queen off for example. Anyway, we bet and we get check raised. Now, because we bet so small, we're going to have some 3-bets in our range. Fairly easy for us to 3-bet the nut flush here. Just got to bear in mind what other hands we might 3-bet as a bluff. And ace x offsuit with the ace of hearts immediately comes to mind to make the most sense to me. So with that going forward, we'll decide to 3-bet. And our opponent calls. Okay, getting check raised on the flop and then calling the 3-bet indicates a lot of strength for most opponents at 2-L. Most opponents are not check raising enough, and so when they do, they're unusually strong. And when you 3-bet them and then they call, they're going to be even stronger still. So we can guess that this guy has a set or a flush almost always. 6 of diamonds on the turn. The pot is 135 and our opponent has 486, and we've got to try and get as much money as possible from flushes and sets. I believe that both categories of his hands, all his flushes and all his sets, will call a bet on the turn, almost no matter what the sizing is. So I want to try and bet a size on the turn that gets as much money in as possible, whilst also setting up a comfortable river jam, so that I can get all the money from sets when it breaks off, and from all flushes when it doesn't pair. So we go for the slight overbet, 163, because if he calls this, he'll have 320 left, and the river pot will be like 450-ish. So it'll be a very nice, easy jam to make. Our opponent calls. We're going to brick river. And as I said, he's got 323 left, and the pot's 461. So we've now got a very easy jam for value. If we didn't 3-bet the flop, if we didn't overbet the turn, we wouldn't be able to get this comfortable kind of river spot where we get all the money in. And this just shows the importance of just going for the maximum. Whenever you've got a value hand, just go for the maximum. There's no need to trap when your opponents are this deep, and especially this bad. Just go for it. So we scoop an $11.07 pot our way before rake. Okay. Next hand. This is a fairly interesting one. Our opponent raises. Going to call. This guy's our main villain. Again, as I said with the ace queen offsuit hand, we elect to squeeze with the ace jack suited. Original raiser folds, and the in-between caller calls. So he's got an extremely capped range, but it's going to be somewhat strong. Bearing that in mind, when he checks over to us, we have an easy third pot bet. And we get check raised. Okay, check raising, I used to think was always nutted. However, after more experience playing, I can now slightly adjust that and say it's always nutted, plus a little bit of weak top pair sometimes. Like it's always strong, at least. Like it's never going to be, air. It's never going to be like 6-7 offsuit, It's going to be like a king sometimes, some nutted flush draws, but we've got all the nutted flush draws. Some combo draws, but again we've got the jack of clubs, and sets and two pairs. Bear that in mind, we've got enough equity to try and cooler this guy, considering that he's really deep as well. Pretty easy call. Turn the flush, which is really good. Our opponent checks. So this is indicative of a two pair or a set that's now scared of a flush. However, we're still going to try and get all the money in. He's got 382 left and the pot's 191. So we need to bet a size that allows us to get all the money in by the river. If we bet a size like 120, we can get 260 in on the river quite comfortably. So we decide to bet 120. Could even go a little bit larger than this to be a bit more greedy. Try and secure all the money from sets and two pairs before another club rolls off on the river, for example. And our opponent does the double check raise. He check raised the flop, now he check raised the turn, and obviously we've got a really easy decision to call. He does have the king X of clubs, which I guess makes sense. I wouldn't choose that hand to check raise the flop with, but as I said, people do some strong things with the check raise on the flop. So that was a nice pot going our way. 925 our way. And this one is another example of aggression, but this time we get a little bit lucky. Our opponent opens. This is a hand I would usually fold, but again, after speaking with Alvin and adopting this new strategy of trying to run people over, I decided to 3-bet, and we get called in position. We've got the range advantage. We should see about our entire range of third pot. We do, and we get called. 7 on the turn. We need to decide which hands to bluff and which hands to check call and check fold. But because I'm trying out this new aggression thing, I'm trying to run people over and to try and see just how often they will call turns. I think this hand is a pretty good candidate to bluff on the turn. Check calling seems weaker than bluffing because when we bluff, we get the villain the opportunity to fold hands that have a lot of equity versus us, like Ace 10 has a lot of equity versus our hand. Jack X obviously has a lot of equity versus our hand, and that might fold to a turn bet. In fact, I think it will fold. And we accidentally capture values from flush draws as well. So basically, no matter what our opponent does, apart from obviously if he raises it sucks, but no matter what our opponent does, if he calls or if he folds, we're pretty comfortable. So we decide to bet. and our opponent calls. The river's the really beautiful 4. All flush draws bricked, and his top pair of ace queen, king queen, obviously 2 pair like queen jack, is now more likely to call us because flush draws bricked and because straight draws bricked as well. You know, if we had king 10, we bricked as well, or 10-9, we bricked. So he's got 177 left, and we've got 188 in the pot. It's worth noting, if I had a flush draw like 10-9 of clubs, for example, that would be a really bad bluff candidate because we block all the flush draws that our opponent should have, and all the straight draws that he might have, skewering him to top pair, and that will make him call a lot. So this is a spot where you can't just bluff off your entire range, but we do have a very clear value hand. It will be unfortunate if we run into jacks here, or ace-4, but I don't think ace-4 would have called the turn anyway, unless he had ace-4 of clubs, but that's impossible because we've got the 4 of clubs. So we only really lose to jacks, maybe queens if he flats that pre, otherwise we're trying to get value from ace-queen and king-queen, and some queen-jack as well. So we jam, and we get tank called off. I remember this, we get tank called off by ace-queen, which seems fairly standard by him, and we got a nice pot going our way. Okay, that was a quick rundown of the kinds of hands that I was playing, just a little bit more wild than usual, and I want to just show our entire graph since the last video. Our entire graph, I believe we were around here when we last left off. We suffered this big downswing, and then we pulled it back up, and now, I don't think you can see that at the end, but we won a giant pot at the end to bring us up to $59.93 won in total, which means we've now got enough to move up to 5NL. We've made $60, which means our bankroll has changed from $4 to $100. We have won a little bit of rakeback as well, so I believe our bankroll is now $102 and something cents, so we're actually a little bit over, and it's just a really nice feeling. Also, bear in mind that we've won $60 here, and our bankroll's at like 102 something, so we won like 250-ish in rakeback. However, we've paid 31.40 in rake, so getting 250 back is under a tenth of our rake back. So if you were to try this sort of thing, definitely prioritize a site that charges the least amount of rake. PokerStars actually does have the lowest rake at 2NL, but a rake of 31.40 over this many hands. Let me just get my calculator out. 31.40 in rake divided by how many hands we played. We played 22,684, so 226.84 sometimes by 100. We have paid over our entire sample 13.8 big blinds per 100. Sorry, 13.8 cents per 100, which is 6.5 big blinds per 100. 6.5, almost 7 big blinds per 100 is very high in rake. Like, that is a very high rake. If I go from our Zoom, which I played 920 in rake, and I played much more aggressively, 920 in rake divided by 51.97, we're now paying 17, almost 18 cents in rakes. That's 9 big blinds per 100. So just be careful. Rake will eat into your win rate heavily, especially if you're playing like this, playing more aggressive. But your opponents should be just donating to you anyway to compensate for that, as done here. I'll be trying this kind of new strategy at the 5NL Zoom as well. And because I'll be playing Zoom, I'm not sure if it'll be every 1,000 hands this time. I think I'll change it to every few thousand hands, or maybe just every session. Maybe not have a concrete number, because it depends on how much Zoom I end up playing in a particular day. Like this session, I played 1,800 hands in 2 hours, so, you know, I can't stop in the middle of the session to make a video every 1,000 hands, so I'll see. I'll play it by ear, see how we do. Anyway, when you next see me in the next video, we'll now be moving up, and I'll see you guys then. Alright, peace.